Hello everybody and welcome to this week's Motor Trade Radio podcast in association with eBay Motors Group. It is Saturday the 19th of December and you're joined by myself, Philip Nothard.
And me, Curtis Hutchinson. So this is episode 396 of Motor Trade Radio, bringing you all the chatter that matters. And this is the final show of the year.
It is. And what a year it's been, Curtis? What a year.
Oh, wow. Yes. Absolutely. And we've actually broadcast every single week of this year, sometimes twice a week.
We have, and it's just a shame that because next week I guarantee there will be some good headlines that we probably will miss, but I think we probably want to give everybody, we need a break, and to be fair, I think our listeners probably need a break as well, just for a couple of weeks whilst they chill out and enjoy the Christmas however way they're going to enjoy that, which we'll get into a little bit more throughout the show, won't we, this morning?
Yeah, well, talking about enjoying Christmas, I mean, we've just had the latest updates on various lockdowns. So showrooms in Wales are closing from Christmas Eve with a Tier 4 lockdown starting from the 28th of December. And we heard today that Northern Ireland is going to a 6-week lockdown from Boxing Day. And we'll come back to that a little later in the show. But and 2/3 of England are now in Tier 3.
Yeah, and we were talking before the show how stringent the Welsh lockdown is, and we'll talk about Ireland as well, won't we? That they are pretty strict lockdowns, these that have come into force or coming into force.
Yes, and they do impact dealers quite severely. So it's not a great way to finish the year, is it?
It's not. And you got a shout out this week as well, haven't you, Curtis? That somebody kindly emailed you.
Yes, indeed. Mark Robinson, former CEO of Vantage Motor Group. So a lot of listeners will be familiar with Mark. He got in touch to really thank us for what we've been doing and saying that sometimes it's difficult to process the constant flow of information from the traditional publications and social media, as you and I both know.
Yes.
And he went on to say that your programs provide an opportunity to take time out and listen, which makes the information easier to digest. And I think last week I was asking listeners to say, where do you actually listen to us? And he said that I often listen to you whilst out on my daily walk. So there you go.
Well, good morning, Mark, and hope you're doing well and getting your exercise in on a daily basis. So great, and thank you for sending that in. Appreciated.
Yes. So before we kick off, we've actually got an exclusive from eBay Motors Group, and you'll hear more about this story over the course of this coming week when the press release starts to hit the trade titles. But they've done some interesting research and modelling on Boxing Day. So as you and I know, Phil, Boxing Day is a huge day in the retail space because Christmas Day, everyone's cooped up with families in normal times, and come Boxing Day, you've got some downtime. So you head online, and that's when the online sales tend to start. So what eBay Motors did was they looked at trends over the last 2 years in terms of car searches, and this modelling showed how key Boxing Day is for car searches. So we know that searching does tend to ease off over the course of December, but people going online on Boxing Day to start thinking about car purchases for January. So their advice is basically to just keep your visibility high over the Christmas period, that online visibility, listings, and even more so now with, as we've said, with the lockdowns and restrictions affecting all parts of the country. So, keep those online lights on,
no,
even if
right.
your showroom's closed.
Exactly. So, I think there's the one learning throughout this year has been that digital presence, and the importance of that digital presence throughout these different tiering lockdowns and regional lockdowns that we've experienced throughout this pandemic so far. But as you say there, that Boxing Day is historically a high volume activity just because of people being sat there and on their iPads and iPhones, etc. But maybe that is the advice, as you say, Curtis, just to make sure that you are visible, you've got everything right, your platform's capable of taking the increased activity, and everything's looking good because
and up to date.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get ready for a great start for the new year is key, isn't it? Because I think everybody's probably looking for as much out of the first month of 2021 as possible. So yeah, great advice there, and look forward to when that comes out.
Yeah, and many thanks to eBay Motors Group for sharing that with us. So headlines this week, you know what, it's not easing off at all. So lots of stories this week, but the ones we're focusing on are, there's been two acquisitions. Cazoo has bought Drover, the subscription platform company, and See It Now has bought DealerWeb, the dealer inquiry management software provider. Brexit uncertainty boosts unseasonal dealer activity, says Cox Automotive. Northern Ireland dealers hit by draconian lockdown from Boxing Day. We reveal the car dealer 100. Well, we're not going to reveal all of them, but and finally, I'm looking forward to this one. Yeah. And finally, what's the most unusual item you found in a customer's car? I know you've got some answers to this one,
I have,
Phil.
Maybe not for the podcast, to be honest with you, but many years in many areas for in this bringing cars in part exchange. But I tell you what would be interesting. I bet not many people will guess some of those that are in that top 10 that we've got at the end. So I was quite shocked at some of them, if I'm honest with you.
I was actually shocked by most of them.
I'm not quite sure I've experienced any of them in my time, in my career in the industry. But we'll have some fun on this over social media over the weekend as well, won't we? So we'll better get underway then, Curtis, because we've got a lot to get through as always. So as you say there, Motor Trader this week shared the story that Cazoo to buy car subscription platform from Drover. Now, that is, as always, anything coming from Alex Chesterman and the Cazoo business creates plenty of activity in the headlines and social media space, and that certainly has this week. But you sit back and look at that as a strategic acquisition, and that is a fantastic move within that space, isn't it? For him and what he does, and we were talking about this before the show, and offering that facility and the car subscription that Drover have been doing for a number of years now. But what a great move that is.
I mean, in terms of strategic fits, this is perfect. It really is. So Drover, as we know, it operates a subscription car service, and it was only founded in 2016. It feels as though they've been around a lot longer than that, but very much a sort of tech startup. So we don't know how much Cazoo paid for Drover, but it's an interesting move because we've reported on the financial backing that Cazoo has, and let's not forget that it has bought the Imperial Car Supermarkets chain earlier this year, and as an online used car retailer, it's now acquired Drover. Cazoo had actually planned to launch its own subscription service next year, so it doesn't have to now because it's got it ready made. And what they're talking about doing is integrating the Drover service with its 14 customer service and collection points for cars. So they can offer Drover across its network, or they can do home delivery of Drover cars. And so this is a point we were talking about. Customers can now buy cars outright from Cazoo. They can finance them through Cazoo, or they can take out a subscription. So that's three very key boxes ticked.
Yeah, he is. He's delivering that sort of customer choice into and that flexibility for the customers, and it is going to be an interesting one. And as I say, there's been some activity on social media, and our friend David Billsworth put a very relevant point on the chat on this week to say that that whole finance sector surrounding, especially the length of terms available, it is entering that sector into that new consumer desire, that new consumer behaviour, he's talking about that the opportunity that this subscription model will help exploit that area
Yeah.
and provide customers with that more flexible, shorter term rental of a vehicle. But for used cars, that's the key with it. And I think, did you mention Uber? We're doing something with Drover as well in London.
Yes, yeah. Drover have been supplying Uber in London over recent years, so that's obviously a very good contract to have, and one which Kazoo will see the value of, definitely.
Yeah. And moving on to a second acquisition of this week, and this is over to AM Online, and as you said before, Curtis, this is See It Now, who we know as the video software business or experts, has acquired showroom software firm DealerWeb. So a very logical move there between those two businesses, and obviously Martin Hurley is one of the founders of DealerWeb, but actually that video software now buying that sort of dealer, so the integration between the two will be a lot easier for this business now, won't it, going forward?
Yeah, because these are effectively two auto tech companies, and the synergies are very good. That this is such a good fit, it really is. So DealerWeb founder and CEO Martin Hill will actually stay on as strategy director, with managing director James Hill assuming day-to-day management of the company. So the plan is, as we know from this story, to operate the companies separately, but obviously bring them together in terms of insight, innovation, synergies, and start to leverage some of that innovation that both companies have.
Yeah, again, great move, and kind of shows that rapid growth of the tech sector, doesn't it, of these businesses now. So both businesses been around for some time, both very well known in their own areas, but again brings that sharing of insight, sharing of innovation together. So I suspect we'll see a lot more from these guys as we go forward.
Yeah. Now, next story from AM is Brexit uncertainty boosts unseasonal dealer activity, says Cox Automotive. So tell us about this unseasonal dealer activity, Phil.
Yeah, I mean, that's, again, we were saying before that I think that in terms of the new car market, I mean, there's a lot going on with Brexit at the minute, or not a lot going on with Brexit, depending on how you look at it. We've seen impact of some of the uncertainties it's having on the sector in terms of vehicle supply from mainland England over into Northern Ireland, because of the unknowns and uncertainty around the VAT implications of vehicles entering the Northern Ireland market, with the risk of a no deal or the backstop risk, etc. So a lot going on, but I think one of the things that we are starting to see as we move to the end of December is that new car market starts to hold up a little bit as activity starts to take place. Now, some of that is because there's vehicles in the market that are at the end of the derogation period, and as you know, there was a certain number of vehicles that the manufacturers could take past, and they had a derogation period that ends at the end of December, so those vehicles need registering before the end of December. So there's activity taking place there. Plus, there's vehicles on, there's product on the ground that the manufacturers will be looking at getting registered before any price increases or further implications of Brexit could happen as we enter January. So there seems to be a lot of activity taking place there.
Yeah, this is interesting, isn't it? Because throughout this year, we haven't really talked about pre-registrations because there's been no need for them. But this is effectively what's happening in December, isn't it? It's the OEMs getting these vehicles in showrooms, registered, certainly in the country, and registered.
Yeah, because nobody really knows what the impact of the delays, of logistic delays, import charges or import delays will have on the UK market. So, the fact that they could be going into the first quarter of next year, and I know a couple of CEOs have talked about it this week, that there is going to be impact on the new car market in the short term as we enter the new year. Whatever, with or without border tariffs, there is going to be delays at
Yes.
borders and logistic delays for those new vehicles coming into the UK. So there is a lot of focus on that. And, let's not forget, some of the manufacturers will be chasing market share for the end of the year as well. And there's reports that there is activity now taking place within the contract hire and leasing sector where, there's deals that could be taking place where, as we've mentioned it before on the podcast, where the manufacturer can register some vehicles to a contract hire leasing company, keep them, funded for them until the new year and when they want them into the market. But, there is activity now because a lot of the leasing contract hire companies are seeing the opportunities for the new year in different areas such as subscription and flexi rental and things like this. So there's an opportunity there. I mean, it is still a low volume month. Let's not forget that. Put it in context. I don't think we're going to see hundreds of thousands of cars registered through any kind of activity. But the reports earlier this week was that the market was only 7% down year on year. So considering some of the impact that we've had through the pandemic and on that new car decline, to be partway through December and only running single digit behind year on year is not a bad place to be for the market.
Yeah, it's an interesting one to watch this, and I suspect we're going to see a good supply of nearly new cars going into the new year.
And it'll be a good way because there is going to be a potential used car supply shortage in the meantime over the new year, so into the new year. So maybe there is an opportunity there for some of the pre-reg tactical registration product that will be in demand in that nearly new sector. So again, it'll be opportunities for the dealers to take advantage of in the new year.
You're listening to All the Chatter That Matters on the Motor Trade Radio podcast, brought to you in association with eBay Motors Group. We are the only weekly podcast serving the car retailing sector and available by subscribing on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you find your favourite podcasts.
So we mentioned Northern Ireland at the start of this, and
Yeah.
going straight over to the car dealer news release that has broken sort of Friday morning of this week. But the headline is bleak winter for Northern Ireland car dealers as 6-week lockdown announced with no click and collect. I mean, not only are they having problems getting cars from a used car perspective because of obviously the Brexit implications that were mentioned earlier, but heading into what is a fairly stringent lockdown, isn't it, for that 6-week period?
You know what? Even the First Minister, Michelle O'Neill, describes the lockdown as draconian. But she does go on to say that it is necessary. And the absolute key to this story for dealers is that it does include click and collect, which, as we know, has been available to dealers and customers throughout all previous lockdowns across the UK. So this is a very, very strict one.
I mean, to be fair, many dealers have survived on the fact that they've been able to operate a click and collect system.
Yeah.
Into it. That's all the conversations, even in the early lockdown one that we were having with the network. That having that ability to be able to do online click and collect has been a saviour for many of these businesses. I know conversations this week that many dealers are panicking now. How long can they last? We're already hearing that potentially we're going to be going into the new year in England with another lockdown. No one's sure yet. I think it's just ministers talking that there is a risk of another lockdown. And some of the dealers are saying they're not sure they can last a third lockdown. So the pressure is now on, isn't it, for the dealer network and other businesses, but particularly on the dealer network side.
Yeah, it is very much so. And as we said at the top of the show, it's this stop, start, and it's becoming impossible now for dealers to actually plan in advance because of these disruptions. So, this is possibly the worst way to finish the year.
Yeah, it's not what they want, is it? I mean, we talk about Wales right at the start of the show there,
yeah.
and England has been going through a movement of tier structures. I'm not sure how many was good or bad in terms of moving from one tier into another. I'm not sure anyone knows what they can or can't do in different tier structures. But again, a lot going on, and it's, as you say, and I think it's been a common theme all the way through this. And Brexit is the same. It's the planning. It's the inability to be able to plan
Yeah.
in the short term
Yes.
that all this is now causing. That, you know what, if you go into a 6-week lockdown, you know that at the end of it, that is it, and you can carry on. You can plan. The problem is at the minute they don't know, do they? And that's the risk, and that's the impact that a lot is having on the dealers. So good luck to them. Anybody listening from Northern Ireland, wish you all the best, and hopefully we come out of this the other side a lot stronger and a lot better from it.
Okay, so moving on to Car Dealer, we've got the Car Dealer Top 100. So it's this is a new listing, and it's an interesting one because, as we know, AM has the AM 100, Motor Trader has the Top 200, which are based around franchise dealers' results, but really looking at them in terms of turnover. The Car Dealer Top 100, so this is the first one, looks at franchise and independent groups, and it's really looking at them in terms of profitability rather than turnover. So they've joined forces with ASE Global and come up with some new rankings, which does make for interesting reading. Bearing in mind, a lot of these results will be based on the 2019 financial year. So before a lot of this year's disruptions, but still worth heading over to the website there to have a look at the ratings.
And not asking you to read out the 100 there, Curtis, and I'm not sure we've got time for the top 10, but do you want to pick out a couple of notable ones that are in that list?
Yeah. I mean, what is interesting, because we're now seeing supermarkets alongside of car groups, franchise car groups. So within the top 10, we've got Motorpoint Group, and in terms of profitability, they're on £23.9 million profit for the year, return on sales of 1.8. And this is actually quite key to the listings, because you get to see the return on sales. So if we go to number 7, the Trade Centre Group, their return on sales is 8.3%, which that will take some beating, and profit there is 25.1 million. And the rest of the top, in fact, I'll give you the top 5, because it doesn't look that different to what we're seeing in the other ratings. But bearing in mind, this is by profitability, not turnover. So number 5, we've got Marshall Motors. Number 4, Lookers. Number 3, Pendragon. Number 2, this could be the surprise, Sytner, and number 1, Arnold Clark. Now, I say Sytner is the surprise at number 2 because, of course, it dominates the AM and Motor Trader listings because of its turnover. But Arnold Clark, its profits there, £194 million on turnover of 4.46 billion and a return on sale of 2.6%. Now, who wouldn't want 2.6% at the moment?
Exactly, yeah. And like you say, Sytner's at 152 million, but a 1.3% return on that as well. So
which still isn't bad going.
It's not bad, is it? But, I think you're right. I think that that standout figure is the 8.3% from the Trade Centre Group, and you've got Big Motoring World at 4% as well. So there are some significant good numbers in that return on sales starting to appear, and Saxon 4x4 at 4.2%. So the operating businesses do obviously show a slightly different story, but can you imagine the Arnold Clarks and the Sytners getting to an 8.3% return on sales on that kind of turnover volume? But maybe that would be an aspiration to go for. But
yes, most definitely. And there's loads of numbers and data in this, and it's well worth heading over to the website to have a closer look. But the combined turnover of the Car Dealer Top 100 is £55.8 billion.
I mean, what's does it give the return on sales average on it? I don't know if it does.
It probably does somewhere.
Yeah. Maybe have a look at that, because it'll be interesting to see what the data coming from ASE there say for that. That's the average for the top 100 list of return on sales. So again, head over to the website. A lot of detail there, a lot of data. But we're going to finish this year and this podcast on a bit of an amusing one, and maybe a little bit of social activity on this over the weekend. We might have a little bit of fun on this one, but a shout out to Owen Edwards from Grant Thornton for spotting this one and sending it in, and it's quite an amusing one. It's I think it must be our first one going to, is it Auto Resource there? Auto Resource.
Yes.
And it's from a miniature goat to a mannequin, some of the strangest things left in cars. Now, I've been in the car trade a long time, and I've brought in a lot of things in part exchanges that people have left, and it's never been a miniature goat. So
No. I mean, how on earth do you leave a miniature goat or any sort of goat in your car?
I think there's a question about a lot of this in the top 7 of how you actually leave them in the car. I won't ruin the fun. I'll let you go through the top 7, which I think is listed there. But yeah, it's reported by Book My Garage from its network of 9,000 franchise and independent garages, and it includes some fairly unusual things, should we say?
Yeah, there's some howlers here. So number 7, false teeth. Number 6, a Shiwi.
We had to look at that one twice, didn't we, just to make... Yeah,
we did, yes. Number 5, Mankini.
Now, that wouldn't have been around in my day, because I don't think Mankinis were a thing when I was in the in bringing in part exchanges in my day, but maybe it wasn't. It just maybe hadn't Borat wasn't about at them days. I'm not too sure, but yeah.
Well, it gets worse, because number 4 is edible underwear. No, number 3, we were kind of scratching our heads over this one. A mannequin. How can you leave a mannequin in the car? But
it gets worse.
But yeah. Number 2, a sleeping baby. Yes. And number 1, as you said, a miniature goat. So these are bizarre, aren't they?
I mean, I'm just trying to vision the salesperson that he's handed over the new car. He's done everything. Customer was waving his customer, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, off in their new car. Walks over to move the part exchange, and well, I suppose you can say this about all of them. I mean, sleeping baby, yeah, questionable, isn't it? Like, I think we've forgotten something, love. No, I think we're all right. I don't think we've forgotten anything. Yeah, we've left the baby. But a miniature goat isn't, just. I don't know.
I'm still grappling with that one. I mean, why would you have a goat in your car?
I mean, that is the next question, isn't it? It's kind of the one. There's the leaving the goat in the car, but there's having the goat in the car. Some of them you can. I say some of them. Be careful what I say. You can logically understand that why they'd be in the car in the first place, but the miniature goat is not something you logically tell you that would be in the car. But anyway, yes.
That they also identify questionable excuses for vehicle faults. There's some lovely ones here. So these are customers going in saying that there's something wrong with the car, and when they give the excuse, it's I watched a video on YouTube on how to fix it. So how many listeners out there have been on the receiving end of that one? A car comes into your workshop, and obviously the owner has tried to fix something, try to do it themselves, made an absolute mess of it, and for you to put right. So yeah, YouTube's a wonderful thing, but
you can envision the mobile phone being being sort of balanced on the washer cap there or something in the engine compartment as the guy's trying to watch the YouTube video and replace the timing belt. But yeah, it's
my favourite one though is I thought it was just a small puddle. Yes.
Yeah, I've some neighbours that have done that a couple of times in their BMWs, both BMWs to be fair, trying to get through thinking they'll be all right. It's not that deep. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And then it sucks all the water in and it stalls in the middle of the puddle. But yeah.
So many thanks to Owen for that one. You know what? He sent that to me as I was looking around for a funny, because I was conscious of the fact that some of our stories this week were a little downbeat, but this one definitely put a smile on our faces. So hopefully it did on yours too.
So we'll do a little bit of social over the weekend and get you guys listening to send in some of the things that you've either found in customers' cars that they've left in and forgotten about, or if you've had more interesting excuses for vehicle faults than those in the list there. So as Curtis said there, how to fix it via YouTube. The second was a dog ate the seatbelt. It's going to be going for expert though. Can't you just pass it? It's going through export, sorry, can't you just pass it? Obviously for an MOT perspective, it looked easy when I googled it, and then obviously as you say there, it just looked like a small puddle. So if you get any better ones than that as excuses for vehicle faults, then we'll have a bit of fun over the weekend on that one. But
yeah, and you know who will be able to help us on this one, and that's our friends at JA Autos in, I think they're just outside of Sutton.
Yes.
Because they always tweet and retweet us and make comments on Twitter. So a challenge for you guys. What are the most outrageous or unlikely things you've found in customer cars? Please share.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So, I mean, it just remains to say, thanks to everybody this year for following, for sharing, for being involved, for coming on the show. It's been an absolute fantastic support that we've had throughout this year, hasn't it, Curtis? So it's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, so that's all for this week's and indeed this year's headlines. So you've been listening to the Motor Trade Radio podcast, brought to you in association with eBay Motors Group. Join Philip and I again on the 9th of January for all the chat that matters in 2021. Until then, stay safe and well, and it's a happy Christmas from me.
And it's a happy Christmas from him.